Oh, this is way more damage than before. What is this? Oh. What is that?
I think that was the hot swap idea you had.
There we go.
Some of you guys probably already know this, but Malfeasance and Lucky Pants are broken right now. For some reason, when this is combined with Overload Hand Cannon, which is available in the seasonal artifact this season, you end up dealing upwards of 50% more damage. Not to mention the fact that Hand Cannon's got a 75% buff to all majors as well. We were able to one-phase all of the Kingsfall bosses with this, even killing Oryx, as you just saw, with a 4-bomb, and each boss's health bar just gets drained. You're even able to combine this with a Witherhoard, which is going to add another 25% stacking damage increase to Malfeasance, and then obviously this works super well with Kinetic Surges for 22% more damage on top of that, easily making it the best DPS primary in the game, as long as you're on Hunter. Obviously, with the buff to hand cannons against majors, it also works extremely well on any champions or anything else of that sort. I know champs are technically mini bosses, but I've been told major spec works against them too, so I think there's some crossover. I believe the 75% also applies to them. Don't quote me on that. Either way, if this isn't patched before going into Crota's End, this will make the Malfeasance and Lucky Pants combo amazing for any hunter that ends up needing to switch around to primary damage last minute. So in this video, I'm going to go over everything that you need to have this working to its max, and then also showcase how much extra damage Overload Hand Cannon can give the rotation. Lastly, if you guys do enjoy the video, make sure to drop a quick like and sub. It helps a ton. We're super close to hitting 80k subs on the channel. Now let's get into it. First things first, on this build, absolutely make sure you're running the exotic hand cannon Malfeasance, because this is going to be the best weapon to pair with Lucky Pants. What makes this good is it's a 180 RPM hand cannon, so you can get the stacks for the extra bonus damage with Lucky Pants much quicker than you can with other slower firing hand cannons. And then on top of this, not only are you shooting regular rounds into an enemy and dealing damage that way, but you're also burrowing slugs into their hitbox. And when you have like 5 of these burrowed in the same hitbox, or I think different hitboxes as well, they'll all detonate, dealing a bunch more extra damage. And with this, we also have intrinsic unstoppable rounds. Second to this is going to be the Catalyst, which gives Vorpal Weapon, which is insane. On primaries, Vorpal Weapon is a 20% buff, so the highest out of all 3 different ammo types. And then on top of that, this does work on bosses and mini bosses. So you're getting 20% increased damage against champions. And then obviously, as you've seen in the boss bakes, we're also dealing 20% more damage just to regular bosses as well. Then finally, to maximize your damage with Malfeasance, the perk Taken Predator gives a 25% bonus to anything that is taken. If you do apply Witherhoard to an enemy, even though people think it makes the enemy taken, that's not what's actually going on, but it does still give that 25% bonus. You can easily tag something with Witherhoard, which we did in a ton of the boss bakes, and that gives 25% more damage on top of everything else. With the exotic leg armor Lucky Pants, whenever you ready a hand cannon and you start shooting, every successive shot is going to increase your hand cannon damage by 60%. This caps out at 600%, so after 10 rounds shot, you're fully capped out, and it only lasts for 5.5 seconds. So that's why a 180 RPM hand cannon is super good. And with Malfeasance, we're getting the bonus damage from the slug explosions. And then after that is done, you're gonna get the perk Out of Luck, or the debuff Out of Luck, and then you need to essentially wait 10 seconds for you to be able to stow that hand cannon and then pull it back out again and actually get the illegally modded holster damage buff again. Then lastly, the reason that Malfeasance is as broken as it is right now is because we do have in the artifact Overload Hand Cannon. So absolutely make sure you're running this with the Lucky Pants build. While Lucky Pants is on and you have Malfeasance, this gives around 50% more damage just for free. Real quick, just to show Overload does indeed do something, against the Grasp Ogre, without Overload Hand Cannon, I hit around 400,000 damage using a single magazine. The one attempt, I hit like 430k, and then the second one, I hit around 410k. Then after this, I ended up applying Overload Hand Cannon, and I ended up hitting for 620,000 damage in my first attempt. And in another attempt, I ended up hitting way lower, but I still hit 530,000. So this is anywhere from a 30% on the low end to 50% on the high end increase. I'm not sure if the damage increase is always a consistent number. Obviously, my attempts did have some variance, but either way, it is a massive increase in your overall damage, and I do believe this only works when using Lucky Pants and Malfeasance together. Lastly, for the subclass that I've been running this on for the most part, I've been rocking Gunslinger with Blade Barrage just for some quick burst damage. Gambler's Dodge is really nice for getting your melees back, especially when taking this up against champions. You might just hit them with your melee to get Radiant, give yourself a nice 25% damage increase. You can bake the champion, but then you won't have your knives back, so you can easily just use Gambler's Dodge and get them back that way. I tend to use Knife Trick for the most part in PvE activities. This is the best one for just getting general kills and also easy to use to not miss your knives if you want to proc something like Radiant. Lastly, especially when going up against champions or bosses or whatever else, I just run Healing Grenade. None of the grenades really do much else for the build, especially on Hunter. Healing Grenade is a solid go-to. For my first aspect, I'm almost always on Knock 'em Down. This will buff Blade Barrage by giving you a couple more knives, and then more importantly, whenever you're Radiant and you get a melee kill, it fully refunds your melee. Second to this is On Your Mark for the 3 fragment slots. It's also super nice. Whenever you get precision final blows, you get increases in handling and reload speed, or you can just always use your dodge and cap yourself out at the max amount of stacks. Lastly, for your fragments, because this isn't a full stick to it 100% build, you can change these up if you really want to. I run Ember of Ashes to apply more scorch stacks and trigger ignitions more consistently. I have Ember of Solace on so that anytime I do proc Radiant, I get the full duration, which is useful if I'm using other weapons to go up against anti-barriers, or I just want that longer lasting damage increase when hitting my knives. To actually get Radiant, you do need Ember of Torches on, so this works really well with your Knife Trick, and then obviously pairs with Knock 'em Down, so that we can infinitely throw knives and become Radiant. Ember of Singeing is very nice because anytime we scorch targets, which we can easily do with our Knife Trick, we get like 300% increased regen for our class ability. So you have a very nice system where you can just dodge, get your melee back, throw your melee, get your dodge back, and then keep cycling that. And then lastly, with Blade Barrage, I have been running Ember of Beams, especially in some of the boss bakes where bosses are further away, so that I can hit all those knives more consistently. The full mod setup is on screen right now if you guys want. Keep in mind, a lot of these mods change depending on what I'm using Lucky Pants for. On my helmet, I've just been running Arc Siphon and then Kinetic Siphon, so I can generate Orbs of Power. This will generate them with Malfeasance, and then also, anytime I'm using like an Arc weapon, I tend to run Forbearance a lot for just general ad clear. This will give me Orbs that way. Especially when on Solar, I run heavy-handed so that my Knife Trick melees can also generate orbs on demand whenever I need them. And then with this, I've been running Kinetic Loader. Sometimes I'll switch out to like Marksman Dodge if I'm doing a boss bake and get a reload off that way. Otherwise, I do want to have super snappy reloads with something like Kinetic Reloader for Malfeasance to optimize my damage. On my chest, as always, I just have 3 copies of damage reduction mods. This is a really good practice to be in just so that you can survive in endgame content much easier. On my legs, this is where things change the most. For general builds, especially if I'm going through like a Legend Lost sector or something like that, I'll just run 1 Kinetic Surge for 10% damage to Malfeasance. I'll run Recuperation so that Orbs of Power I pick up can also help keep me alive, and then stacks on stacks so that I'm constantly getting these stacks to have armor charge stacks up as I'm roaming around. If you're in a boss fight, obviously you're going to want to hot swap this out to just 3x Kinetic Surges because somebody can drop a well for you, or you can get orbs through other people's supers, and then you have surges that way. Lastly, on my class item, I do have 1 copy of Bomber just to keep my uptime for my Healing Grenade there because my dodge already gives me my melee back as well. With that, I'm also running Time Dilation. 1 copy will take my time per surge from 10 seconds up to 15. So in total, if I have 3 stacks, I go from 30 seconds to 45 seconds, which is a pretty massive increase at 3 stacks. And then obviously Powerful Attraction. I dodge a good bit to get my knives back with Gambler's Dodge. So this just picks up all the Orbs of Power nearby whenever I do that. So overall, just as a recap of the damage stacking that you do want to have to end the video off, Malfeasance and Lucky Pants is your base combo, where Lucky Pants caps out at plus 600%. The Malfeasance Caddy gives plus 20% to champs and bosses. Overload Hand Cannon in the artifact gives around 50%, which is the most I've seen in a couple of cases. Then lastly, you can use Witherhoard to give another 25% as well. And that is always on top of your typical 25% buff, 30% debuff, and the 22% from 3 Kinetic Surges that you're usually going to be running in most setups. Let me know your thoughts on the current setup and if you think Overload is going to be in some way disabled for Crota's End. And also, if you guys are a Hunter main, let me know in the comments if you plan on taking this into the new raid. I stream a bunch over on Twitch as well, where we do a lot of these boss bakes and testing. So if you guys want, a link to my Twitch will be down in the description below. As always, have a good one, guys. Peace.